Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge and welcome to, I know, a highly anticipated video for some people. I don't know how this is going to do on my channel overall. We shall see. If it does well, I plan to make this a series because I don't see myself stopping with the fan fiction anytime soon. Like, I don't see it ending anytime soon. So I have two dedications to do quickly and then we'll dive in because I'm filming this after work, which means I'm gonna lose the light. Even with my ring light, I'm gonna lose the light, so we're gonna plow through. First, I have to dedicate this book to my friend Jo. She doesn't have a channel anymore. I would tag her down below, but we met through Booktube acquaintances and we've really stayed friends. I mean, going on to like 3 years now. We've been friends, and she, at the very end of December, was diving into fan fiction that she had seen on TikTok, and she pushed me into starting it, and we will get to that in a minute. But I've just been kind of voracious for it right now, and it's really been all I've wanted to read. As my, weekly viewers would know, I've had fanfic in pretty much every weekly wrap-up I've had. And yeah, I'm excited to share with you. The second dedication I have to do is this video was voted on by my channel members, my romantic renegades and faded friends, who really wanted me to make this video, and so they voted on this one. So this video is sponsored by my channel members. If you're interested in channel memberships, I have a variety of different levels. They're each only a few dollars a month, but when lots of you are signed up for it, it really does help supplement what I make from YouTube and just, helps me keep filling my shelves and bringing you content. So let us dive in. I actually have 12 to share with you. So first I want to tell you a little bit of basics about some fanfic because I get these questions, quite often at this point. And I am by no means a professional in the fanfic world, okay? I very little bit dabbled in fan fiction when I was in college. I dabbled with actually Vampire Diaries fanfic way back when, but it just kind of fell away. It didn't happen. I wasn't reading as much when I was in college, or I feel like I would have really dived into it, but I actually did read like after, when it was still like on Wattpad and all that jazz. But anyway, there are many different sites to get fanfic from. In general, you can read it right on your phone, but so far I have only found one site that actually turns it into a document for you, and you can download a file to your Kindle. I am not going to show you how to do that. As I have mentioned before, you literally can just Google how to download from AO3 to your Kindle. AO3 stands for an archive of our own. Okay, so it's a archive of our own, which is the 0 times 3. So if you, again, type into Google, if you type in archive of our own, I'm going to have all of these fanfics linked. Will I link each individual one? I might not. I might just link archive of our own because I don't have enough time to search all these links and put them. But that is the one that I use. You can download it. You can straight up use your phone and download and email it to yourself, or I've used my laptop and done it, but I read them all on my Kindle. And currently I'm only really using AO3 because it lets me download to my Kindle. I don't really enjoy reading on my phone too often, but you will probably find recommendations from some other people, in the comments maybe, or other places where they use fanfic.net or other sites where you can just find them on your phone and you can read them on there. But you'd have to go back to it every time to read it. Whereas these ones that I can download from AO3, you can download it to your phone and Kindle, and then I have it, on my Kindle Paperwhite, which has been amazing. So anyway, also some fan fictions, particularly some of the Harry Potter ones I found, which is what we're going to be talking about, they have audiobooks that are being created. Because fanfic is not legal for the authors to make any money off of it, because we are, the characters and the world in general belongs to the person who created it. So they cannot sell it or sell the rights to it. So there are ways to have them made into audiobooks where there are people who have like Patreons where they're supported, including one called ETL Echo, who they have done they have done audio for a few of the ones that I'm going to mention. So you can actually go straight to Spotify and listen to some of these. The thing is like, it's what I found is pretty much the same person who's doing all of the ones. So some of them, like, they very much like sound the same, even when you're reading like very different stories. But some of you who need audiobooks to get through your books, like, it's pretty great to be able to have some fanfic, audio versions of them. The other thing is bookbinding. Again, because these do not belong to anyone, they cannot be like printed, they can't upload them on Amazon and have a print on demand for you. So you may find out there, I have shared some of them in my story even, there are some people who do bookbinding. They make their own typeset, they format the book and they print it and they make covers and they do all of that. And so they are gorgeous. Good luck finding someone to commission one for you. They're very expensive. I do have a copy of a couple of these books coming to me because one of my friends is hand binding them for me because she's amazing and she thought that bookbinding was really cool. But this is something that you can watch tutorials on if you want, but you cannot just go buy these anywhere unless you're willing to pay someone a lot of money, which is deserved because it's a big project to hand bind a book. When you literally have to sew the book together. That's how you put it together. It's like you sew it together. So yeah, for the most part, these will just live in the digital world. So anyway, I've spent 7 minutes talking about all the back stuff of it. We're going to talk about these fanfics that I've read. Some of them I'll go into more detail than others. Some of these, again, you'll be able to find on Goodreads because people have like created a page for it, but other ones there isn't. So you're just going to have to look it up. So anyway, and then, yeah, let's go. So obviously the main one, this one I actually have given 6 stars and it's on my favorites list for 2022 already. And that's going to be Manacled. Sorry, my camera just stopped on me. It's okay. We're going to keep going. This deviates from the canon in a lot of ways, but the main way that I explain this book to people is that it is a alternate universe Harry Potter meets The Handmaid's Tale. Like I said, it's split into 3 parts. Basically, sometimes you'll see it all bound together in one. Sometimes you'll see it in the 3 parts. This book starts with where the Dark Lord has won. And most of the people that we love have died. This is very, very dark. We will see depictions of some of the deaths as well as recollections. We have characters going through PTSD / still living through the trauma. Like, it's like you're living with the PTSD as well as living through the trauma. And we have Hermione, who has been imprisoned in solitary confinement, and not only solitary confinement, she's been in sensory deprivation for months and months. And at the beginning of this, she is taken out of it, rudely pushed back into the world. She is cuffed, hence the manacles, to suppress her magic. And she is informed that the Dark Lord has enacted a breeding program and turned either like muggle witches and wizards or ones who were opposed to his regime into literally walking wombs. They are incubators for the seed of purebloods that he is deemed worthy enough to continue on with wizard kind. So yep, this is very dark. This is as dark as it sounds. And so Hermione is given to Draco and his wife to be a walking womb for him. And so the first third of this book is Draco very much raping her repeatedly. Once a month he will actually a whole week. So during her fertile time, he's forced to rape her for a week straight. It's very clear that it's very distasteful to him. There are times where he very much tries to keep it cold. He keeps as much distance from her as he can. Sometimes he is vomiting after he's forced to do this, but he doesn't speak with her much. And he is married at this as an arranged marriage. He's not in love with who his wife is, but there's all that happening, and she is very much just there for that. And if she doesn't get pregnant with him, she'll be sent to someone else. So again, very much like The Handmaid's Tale in that aspect. But that's only the beginning of it. And I don't want to spoil this entire fan fiction because the twists and reveals that happen are fantastic. There are points in this book, though, that it will feel so heavy and dark that you don't understand how it could be satisfying, or how there could be a good enough turn where you are like, wow, this is what happily ever after looks like, you know, because it's brutal. And characters that you love with your heart and soul, they're just not there. They're gone. We also, at a point in the book, see what was going on before Harry died and before the Dark Lord won, and the struggle that Hermione is having to get the Order to fight in an effective way. Like, they very much don't want dark magic involved, you know, all this. And she's like, we will lose if you do that. So, yeah. This does have an HEA. This does have a happily ever after. I've had people ask me that. Every single one that I'm going to share today, they have a happily ever after. I don't read the ones that don't, but that does not mean that you won't question it. You won't question it at many points, but it does. And it's beautiful and powerful. And again, like, I think about that book so often, and I can't wait till I get my bound copy of it so that I can put notes in it and reread it and just live it all again, because it is fantastic. And also, if you read this, I highly recommend, if you have like an Amazon Fire tablet, or if you are reading on your phone, I do recommend, because there are some beautiful illustrations. I mean, most of them are in black and white, so I guess, but it's better seeing them on like a screen that isn't the paper white, is my point. There are beautiful illustrations. There are so many illustrations for this series, this book, because it is highly, highly loved by many people. Okay, like, this is a lot of people's first step into fanfic, because they hear how excited everyone is about it, and it's so epic. Like, seriously, this is a fucking fantastic fantasy book. And even if, like, you don't love Harry Potter, that's even better. Like, that's even better in my opinion, because, like, they're archetypes you've seen before. You know, like, there's the cold villain that we want to have a redemption arc, and there's the smart heroine who's pushed into a situation that you don't want her to be in, and you're hoping she's going to be smart enough and figure it out to stay ahead of everything, you know? So anyway, I knew I was going to talk a long time about that one. I have talked ad nauseum about this one, and I haven't had a friend who's read it who's regretted it when it's done. But there are all the triggers you might think there'd be. I mean, obviously I mentioned rape already. There is death of beloved characters. There is forced pregnancy, because that's the topic of this. There's torture, there's pain, there's PTSD, there's all of those things that come with war. And actually quite a lot of the books I'm going to mention, they deal with that. So there you go. Next, I have my second favorite one that I've read, which I've also talked a lot about, and that one is Contradictions by Ambpersands. This one is kind of canonical time, but the epilogue is thrown out. You'll see that mentioned in a lot of it. It'll say epilogue. What epilogue? So, like, the events that happen in the canon happen, but then, like, it's the after that's changed. You'll see that's some terminology that's used, like, in the hashtags you'll see when you go to look at the fanfic. So this one is set in, like, it's set in the magical world, and we have Hermione, who, I think this one's like 10 years later, 7, I'm not sure. She has had an unsuccessful relationship with Ron, so they've broken up. She has tried basically like online dating. It's not really online dating, but she's tried dating a few people, and she's not having any sexually satisfying experiences with men. She's having a lot of trouble letting go and trusting her body to someone, and because it's Hermione and she's the brightest witch ever, she stumbles across the BDSM community. Yes, this is where this is going to go, because this is a Draco and Hermione fanfic, as I was going to say, and I gave it 5 stars. So she stumbles across this secret club where you fill out a questionnaire for them and they will pair you with someone who has maybe like kinks as you, or who they feel like will be a good match for you. And so she agrees to try this out. And the thing is like she doesn't have a lot of kinks that she thinks she's going to like because she hasn't fully done this. She's just heard that for women like her who are very like controlled, like letting someone else be in charge could be good for them. Oh my God. So she goes, and the Dom who she's going to be meeting shows up, and he asks her to put a blindfold on, and he's like, I just, I don't want us to be like judging each other, like let's just talk and like see what you want out of this encounter. And so they talk, and he ends up, whoever this person is, who obviously we don't know who it is, but he ends up actually like finger banging her in his lap, and really like, and she has an orgasm with him. She's like, oh my God, that never happens. Because he's like, tell me what you like, and these are the aspects that I could help you with, and the things where I think would be a good match for each other. And then her blindfold ends up coming off, and also she had a glamour on her as well, because obviously like if she just had a blindfold on, Draco would have probably recognized her. But when she orgasms, her glamour drops, and then he like pulls her blindfold off and is like, oh my God, it's Hermione. And so he tries to get her to stop, because he's like, no, like we need to do aftercare. You can't just run away. It's very bad for your mental health. But she's like, oh my God, this is Draco Malfoy. I hate him. He's an enemy of mine. And she flees. She disapparates out of there. Well, they both work at the ministry. She never sees him there. She hasn't seen him in years because he works in a completely different area. And I believe he had to like do some time in Azkaban too. I think he did. But he comes into her office the next day and is like, you didn't stay for aftercare. And he's like, so we're going to do aftercare right now. And I can I can give you some advice about what to look for in another Dom. I understand that you don't want me to be yours, but still, like, you can't leave like that. It's very unhealthy. And she ends up, after him explaining, that he did like what they were doing, but he understands, she ends up asking him if they can have a second chance together. And he's like, okay, let's do it. So they begin they make some rules. They, do all the things that I love about BDSM. So like I actually explained this, that like this was not just a great fanfic, but this was also an excellent BDSM for beginners, because so much, like I love reading BDSM. Y'all know this, but I'm at a more kind of, advanced stage, should we say. But this one was very much like by the rules, like, but also Draco taking control of her, which is what she's looking for. She's looking to let go. And the things I love about this, like if you like praise kink, if you want to be called a good girl, if you want hair petting and snuggles and affirmations spoken, this Draco Malfoy is your man, okay? He is excellent. He has a wonderful communication. Hermione's the one who struggles with it a lot because she has a lot of preconceived notions about him. Fair enough, right? Fair enough. But it never got to the point where I was like angry at her for being that way, because you understand. And just when you're like, I need you to stop, like there's forward motion with their story. So I loved this one. Like I said, it's my second favorite that I've read so far, and it was absolutely beautiful. And it's definitely not as stressful as Manacled, and it is more of like, it reads more as like a contemporary with a BDSM relationship, but it's Draco and Hermione. There you go. Next, I read Bring Him to His Knees, and this is by Musyc, and this is a Draco and Hermione as well. This one I gave 4 stars. This one has an audiobook that is not quite finished, but they put out episodes weekly. This one is kind of a murder mystery. This one also involves some BDSM, but I will say one of the reasons that this one was a 4-star read for me is that there was so much talk in this one about how Draco is a really kinky guy, and then we didn't get to experience very much of it. Like, there was really only a couple of the sex scenes where we even had BDSM involved in it, because what happens in this one is that they all work at the ministry. This is also one where Harry, he's married to Pansy Parkinson in this one, who Pansy used to date Draco, so like Pansy knows about his like desires and stuff, and she was into him, but they just didn't work out. And Draco has kind of a dark situation happening in his home life. His mother is very ill, but he is an investigator with the ministry. He works with Harry, and him and Harry are actually, they're friends. And Hermione, she just hasn't interacted with him much at all, and her friends and Draco, like, they try to keep them like separated, because Hermione has, you know, bad dreams still about being at Malfoy's house and what Bellatrix did to her and all that, which of course Draco would never want to get in her way. But when they both get pulled into this certain investigation, where Draco needs to use his connections with a certain BDSM club because some people have been murdered who were members of that club, Hermione volunteers to go undercover with him and pretend to be his submissive. So that's kind of the setup of this. So mostly this was a murder mystery with them dealing with it. I had a fine time with this one. Again, this one does deal with like PTSD and past traumas, but there aren't really any other kind of like triggers to this one, and it just was a sweet romance. But again, for me it was just a downer, because like Pansy is like talks up Draco's kinkiness to Hermione so much, and then nothing really like comes of it, and I was just kind of like, we only do a couple of scenes with BDSM, and I was just kind of like, meh. But that might be good if you don't like that as much as me. All right, then we have our first deviation to all of the Draco and Hermione I was reading. So I read Compelled by SlytherPouf, and this one was 5 stars for me. This one is a Severus Snape and Hermione Granger, which may be my second favorite pairing that I've been reading so far. One of my viewers, Ash, hi Ash, I'm sure you're watching this because she also shared a ton of recommendations with me. She loves this pairing. She loves a lot of Hermione pairing with like other people other than Draco, and so I have quite a few recs that are from her. But Compelled, this one is also a very dark one. Okay, this one, there is one I've read darker than it, and I mean Manacled is maybe darker than it, but this was very dark. Okay, so this one starts, I can't remember if we are like 5th or 6th year where we're at with this one, because again, some of these start to blend together. But this one has to do with the Dark Lord has won, and he takes over Hogwarts, right? And all of the Muggle-born witches and wizards, he gives them to his Death Eaters as pets, and eventually as like breeding pets. So like that gets enacted. That doesn't get enacted right away. They get given as pets to them first, but then it goes up from there. And so Snape plays it cool because he still is with the Order in this one. Okay, he's with the Order, and he knows that Hermione is with the Order, and so he plays it like he wants to punish her, and so Voldemort gives Hermione to Snape. But he also wants to make sure that Snape is punishing her, and so he puts a sex spell on them both. Okay, he puts a sex curse, whatever, so that they feel compelled to have sex with the other person, and they can only go so many days before they have to, or they're in extreme agony. Okay, and so Snape has to, number one, explain to Hermione that he is with the Order and he's been undercover all this time, but then like Dumbledore died and Harry failed and died, and so now he thinks he's on his own, but he still wants to take down Voldemort. Oh, and by the way, I have to rape you, or we need to have sex. And I just love this one. I loved it so much because he feels so much guilt. You know, he feels horrible that, you know, everything he's done, and Lily's son died anyway, and there's now no one left to help defeat the Dark Lord. But luckily, this one isn't as depressing as Manacled. We do have some Order members who've lived, and they start to kind of make their appearances throughout this book. So we do get to see some other characters. This book, you know, has the triggers of rape. It has the, like, dubious consent. What I loved a lot about this one is that Snape has all this guilt, and now on top of everything, he's being forced to rape Hermione. But Hermione, once she understands what he's been through to this point, what he's had to go through, and what Dumbledore put him through, she's very compassionate to it. So they end up having this thing between them where when one of them is feeling the pull of this curse, when they're feeling horny, they'll just say, like, are you feeling compelled? And then the other person will be like, yes, and then they will give each other orgasms. Then it's fine. And something I really liked in this one is Snape being very clear that, like, you're not in love with me. Like, we're being forced to have sex. And she's like, yeah, but I don't have to like you. You know, like, that's not, the curse isn't forcing me to like you, but it takes him a while to kind of believe that. So this one was very beautiful. The ending of this one was, it's a happily ever after, but this was one where, like, I cried because it was so, because like I said, this one, is a lot of people alive. Like, there is still a Weasley alive. You know, there is Lupin and his kid, and there is other people that have survived, but there is that, like, heavy weight of grief for all the people that we've lost, you know? And, but yeah, this one was, it reminded me of Manacled in the fact of, like, they need to be very meticulous and careful about how they take down the Dark Lord, because Snape, he's in a position of power with Voldemort, but he could lose it at any minute if he doesn't follow through the right way, you know? And this one, there are still Horcruxes involved in this one. So, you know, how will we do them now that Harry's gone? You know, all those things. So it was great. I loved Compelled. It was fantastic. All right. Next, I read the darkest one I've read. Okay, so I read A World Not Fit to Live In, and this is by LissaDream and Snowblind 12. And this pairing is kind of a triad, but kind of not, and I'll explain why not. But this is Lucius, Draco, and Hermione, okay? And I'll explain how. No, it's not incestuous. No, it's not really a triad. We'll get to it. I gave this one 4.5 stars. And as I said in my weekly wrap-up when I reviewed this one, I don't recommend this, okay? I don't recommend this in an even more powerful way than, like, Manacled. Like, Manacled I do recommend because there's a lot of pain, but there weren't things that, like, actively turned my stomach. There specifically is a scene in A World Not Fit to Live In where I wanted to throw up. I didn't understand why I was still reading. And at that point, when that part of the book was happening, this was a 2-star book. And I was like, why? I should just stop. I should give up. But I wanted to finish it because I wanted to bitch about it, you know? That happens to me. Sometimes I get a little vindictive. I don't always. But this was going to be one where I was just going to be like, you guys fucked up. You went too far. This is disgusting. How dare you show me this? But then they explained what was going on. And when I found out what was going on, I was like, oh shit. You know that TikTok where it's like, son of a bitch, I'm in. That's what happened. Okay, but still saying that the trigger warning of the torture and sexual assault, the level of sexual assault in this one, I am not triggered by that. And it was a very close line for me in this one, okay? It was, we are stepping over Jenn's line of what I can handle, okay? It was a lot. Okay, what is the setup of this book? All right, so this is another, they've all lost And Hermione gets given as a gift to the Malfoys. This time there is a there's a slave curse that gets put on her. So there's this potion that Snape has made, and Snape actually gets given Ginny. So he gets given Ginny. Snape is also still a good guy in this one, but it takes us a long time to figure that out because we're mostly in Lucius and Hermione's heads. And Lucius does not think that his good friend... In this one, he's good friends with Snape. Like, they're like buddies. And he didn't know about, like, Lily or, like, all of that stuff. So, anyway, Snape has made this potion, because the Dark Lord made him, that if you both drink it, the person who, like, made you drink it, once they have raped you or fucked you or whatever, they control you. And you have to do whatever they say. So Hermione gets given to Draco and Lucius as a gift and also as a punishment for her. And so they both have drank the potion and they both fuck her, one in each entry point. And then she belongs to them. And as long as they each fuck her once every 4 days, she is their slave. Like, literally. They tell her what to do and she has to do it. And it becomes really clear in the beginning of this that, like, even though Lucius was one way the night of that, it's because they were being spied upon. And so Lucius does not like how things have been going down with Voldemort's takeover everything, right? Like, his family has been being mistreated for the last couple years of this regime, and now he's being forced to rape this child. He sees her as a child, she's 17 years old, and he's like, I hate this. This is horrible. But he has to keep doing it, or his family could be murdered, And also, he thought that Voldemort was the right choice for them at one point, Narcissa is dead in this one. So there's not that aspect anyway. But he tries to be as kind to Hermione as he can. But it's still rape for much of this book. Then we have Draco, who is the most sadistic fucktard that I've ever read. He is cruel about his slavery of his ownership over her. And the things that Draco does to her and to her family are part of the reason why I almost gave up on this book. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to spoil this one. If you think you're brave enough, just know that bestie Jenn on the internet, she told you to watch out what you're getting into. But I gave this 4.5 stars at the end of it. That does not mean I enjoyed most of this journey. That does not mean I will ever reread this book. But the authors made me believe what was happening. Like, by the end of this, when I found out everything, I was like, 4.5 stars. So, the things I loved the most, I loved watching, even though it was horrible what was happening to Hermione, the way that it affects Lucius and the way that he sees, like, is blood purity worth this? Like, why should we be allowed to treat people like this? Like, are wizards even deserving of our power if, like, this is how we are? And that all happens through him falling for Hermione. So, all right, moving along. Next, I read a fun one. After that horrible dark one, I read a fun one, and I read this one called Safe Word is Devil's Snare. So yeah, another BDSM one coming along. And this one is a Neville Longbottom and Hermione Granger, and I gave this one 5 stars. It was delightful. I loved it. I smiled the whole time. It was great. So this one takes place like 7-8 years afterwards. Again, this is one where, like, everyone had, like, paired up and got married at the end of the war. Like, there was this rush of it. But everyone's divorced now. So, like, Ginny and Harry are divorced. Ron and Hermione are divorced. The relationships that were forged during wartime have kind of crumbled. Also, nobody's having magical babies. Like, they're either having squibs or they're not having babies at all. And so Hermione, she works for the ministry in this one, and she's done a lot of research. And something she discovered is that we're maybe not matching with our best partner, and we're maybe causing like our lines to become diluted, or we're just falling into these like patterns, and that's why there's a bunch of squibs being born. There's reasons for it in the book, and I'm gonna make it. And so Hermione uncovers this spell that basically will show you who your best matches are. So it's literally like a magical match.com, okay? The thing is, though, she's kind of uncovered a hornet's nest, because the ministry hears about this spell and they're like, this is it. We're going to make everyone do this. So they started out as like a voluntary basis, but it's going to become mandatory that you marry who your best match is. And if you don't have a baby with them in a certain amount of time, they will pair you with someone else. But anyway, it starts out as pretty much everyone in like their age range, so from like 23 to 30-year-olds, are going to volunteer for this. So Hermione and like, you know, Harry, Ginny, and George, and like everybody, they go to this. Draco's there. They cast this spell, and what it does is it shows like bright light around people you match best with. So some people will just have like a little sparkle around them, and then some of them will be like a bright halo, basically. So Hermione looks around the room, and like her and Harry actually have a pretty good like brightness, and she's like, no, Harry, like this would not work. She notices her and Ron, they don't have like any light between them, which is like sad. Her and Draco have some good light between them, but he's like, no, I can't bring home the mudblood with me, right? The muggle with me. Typical Draco. And Hermione's ready to like give up. And then she bumps in Neville, who's come in late. And he actually has been working with the Auror's office for the last few years, catching dark wizards. And so he was late coming in. And he gets the spell put on him, and him and Hermione like blind each other. They are like the brightest lights. And so they're like, whoa, I guess we should go on a date with each other and see how it goes. So they go on a date with each other, and they decide to give it a try. And Neville admits that he has liked her when they were younger, but he let Ron kind of go ahead, you know. And yeah, so he also eventually shares that he is a dominant, and he likes to be dominant in bed, and she is willing to test that out with him. So this was a short one. It was just over like 200 pages, and I loved it. I loved Draco. He was the perfect amount of just charming and goofy, and then when they'd get in the bedroom, it was like, it was great. It was delightful. Loved it so much. I gotta keep it moving along because I'm talking too long about stuff. But the next one, this one will be easier to talk about. So then we went back to, I did a Draco and Hermione again, and this one's called Wait and Hope by Mightbewriting. 4 stars for this one. I think this one might have an audiobook too. I didn't listen to the audiobook. I just read it because this one was a shorter one. There's also like other books in this, like, well, they're all in the Harry Potter universe, but this author has written other books in this. But this one starts 9 years after the final battle, and Hermione wakes up in the hospital, and she thinks that it is like 2001 instead of 2007. And Draco bursts in asking to see his wife, and she's like, why is Draco Malfoy here? This, like, why is he here? And the nurse is like, your name is actually Hermione Granger Malfoy, and you've been married to him for 2 years. And not only that, they've been together for 5 years, and she doesn't remember any of it. There was an incident where she lost 6 years of her life, and she doesn't understand this world she's in, where Draco is the, like, godfather to Harry and Ginny's children, and Ron is married to someone else, and the last time she'd seen him, they were in a relationship with each other. They broke up later in 2001 before she reconnected with Draco. So like all of these things. So the healers encourage her to go back to her home. She's living in this small like apartment with Draco that is just jammed packed with all of their stuff. She doesn't understand why they live there. He's estranged from his family. She doesn't always talk with her family all the time. She doesn't understand what's going on. So this is a story of her being retold some of their life together and seeing if she can fall in love with Draco a second time. And there's a reason why she lost her memory and like what's going on and everything, but this was adorable. And I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't very high on the spice scale though, because it's like a slow burn because Draco's not going to push anything with her. So that was a little bit of, but it was sweet and it wasn't very long and it was fun. Then I read another Severus and Hermione, and this one was 4 stars, and it was called Awkward by Ciule. I don't know how to say this one. This one was interesting. So this one was another marriage law situation. So it's a weird one. So it's an alternate 6th year. So it takes place at the beginning of Half-Blood Prince, kind of, when Hermione turns 17. And the ministry has enacted this law that everyone over the age of 17 needs to get married and start trying to have babies because, again, there's people not being born. But this is also its alternate 6th year. So, like, Voldemort is actually still out there trying to defeat Harry, and Dumbledore is still alive. And he tells Snape that Hermione will be arrested in 3 months' time if she doesn't get married to someone. And also, this law gets enacted and Snape has to marry someone too, because he's between the ages of 17 and 60 as well. And Dumbledore doesn't want him married off to someone who could blow his cover. And Hermione, he feels safe doing that. And Hermione, neither of her friends, neither Harry or Ron, is going to be 17 within that 3-month time in this world. So she has to marry somebody, and Snape has to marry somebody. So Dumbledore encourages them to marry each other, which, okay. And they're supposed to have at least 2 children with the person that they're with. So this one has all those things. So this one's going to have kind of a forced pregnancy. Kind of dubious consent. That's like, not really, because like she's not really happy that this is happening in the beginning of it, but like it works out. And this is also like a very possessive Severus Snape in this one. And it was pretty hot that he was like that, but so, like, she knows that he's a double agent and she's not allowed to tell anyone. And so we're still doing the events of books 6 and 7, but, like, with Hermione married to Snape. So it was very weird. It's literally called Awkward for a reason. There are very awkward parts that happen. But it was 4 stars. It was pretty hot. Then I have my, like, lowest rated fic that I read, actually, and that one was Test of Fate by Mrs. L120. This was another Severus and Hermione, and this one was weird because this one doesn't have like a reason for them being like forced together. They actually have both seen a fortune teller at different times where they're told about the person they're going to marry. And then this one takes place at the end of Order of the Phoenix, after the battle of the Ministry, and Hermione's actually been injured really horribly. And so they can't just send her home to her parents. She needs to be looked after. And so Dumbledore asks Snape to take care of her for the summertime. So he brings her to his like small home that he has, and he's taking care of her. And they end up kind of falling in love during the time that he's taking care of her. So this one is more of like a classic like student-teacher situation. And then it follows a little bit of the lot of the situation that I talked about in Awkward, where like we're still trying to defeat the Dark Lord during this one, but they end up getting like secretly married so that they can like be with each other. And so it's kept a secret that they are married while she's at school. So it was just weird. I mean, it was strange. And then this one went through the end of the series too. And so I don't know. It just didn't, this one had a surprise pregnancy in it. This one was just strange. Like, it just didn't work for me the way that, like, and probably it's because I read Awkward right before this one. Okay, we got to keep it moving. I'm almost done. I have 3 more to mention. So then I read Remain Nameless by Hey Jude 19. This one is a Draco and Hermione, and this one was 4 stars. This one is very popular with a lot of people. This one has the complete audiobook by ETL Echo, is on Spotify, and I did listen to a good portion of this one. This one is really sweet. This one reads kind of like a contemporary. I mean, it still has the magical element, so it's still a fantasy. But this one takes place like 7-8 years after the Battle of Hogwarts. Hermione works for the Ministry. Draco works for a Quidditch recruiting. Like, he works for a Quidditch team, and he's a recruiter. And he is seeing a therapist because he has severe PTSD and, like, issues because of everything. This book is told through Draco's point of view, but it's like a third person point of view, and he starts slowly trying to like reintegrate with society. And so he starts going to this coffee shop in the Muggle world, and one day he realizes that Hermione also goes to this coffee shop, and he's kind of like trying to stay on the DL because he feels very guilty for what happened to her at his family home, and he doesn't want to like traumatize her or anything. But then one day he comes in to the coffee shop and she's sitting at his table, and they start meeting each other there every morning, and they become friends. And so then this is a friends to lovers story. So this was very sweet. This story takes place over 3.5 years through their awkward beginnings, their friendship, their courtship, their like whole beginning of their lives as they introduce themselves to each other's families and all those things. And it was really beautiful. The 2 things for it is that it was very drawn out, as some fan fictions can be. I feel like they're either very short or they're drawn out. It happens. It's okay. But this one was like a little too drawn out for me. And then the ending just like drug on, and I was like, okay, we're happy. We're the happily ever after. Let's be done. But it was very well written and beautiful, and I do really recommend this one if maybe you want a tamer story, because really the only PTSD in this one is the only trigger warnings is the PTSD of this one. Then I read a couple fun ones. I read Shame's Desire by WildKitsune, and this was a Lucius Malfoy and Ginny Weasley. So for the first time, I had a different heroine in this one. I read this one. This one was very interesting. This one reminded me a lot of like a historical bodice ripper, would be a good way to say it. Hopefully that perked up some of y'all's ears. But this one is Ginny Weasley. Her family is like in some trouble kind of with like, so in this one, again, because it's kind of like it's kind of got a historical vibe, fantasy vibe, right? And Tom Riddle, Voldemort, is the emperor. And so like, all the pure blood families, they like own land, and they have, it's like a feudal system. And, Lucius Malfoy is a lord, like for the Dark Lord. He's like one of his, lieutenants, right? And Narcissa died not too long ago, and so now he's looking for a new wife, and he's very upset with the Weasleys because they have been kind of messing up some of his plans. And also so Ginny, to like fix some things for her family to get them out of debt, she shows up at this like party he's having to find his wife, and she offers herself to him. So I think she's only like 16 or 17 in this one, but she offers herself to him, and he is like, done, taken, you're my bride. He's into BDSM, things get very kinky. He drugs her on their wedding night to make her horny and fertile because he needs an heir. So literally he gives her a lust potion. Come on, Lucius. But very quickly becomes clear that Ginny actually enjoys the master-slave in the bedroom dynamic that they have. I mean, and yeah. I gave this one 4.5 stars because I loved how crazy he ended up being for her. And there's a very dramatic ending to this one. And I actually like hated her parents at the end of this one, which is so funny. I was like, good job, WildKitsune, because I've never been like mad at Arthur Weasley before. Like, I love him and I hated him at the end of this. I was like, oh my gosh, stop messing things up. And then the very last one that I read recently, I read last night. This was another super cute one. This one was a Lucius and Hermione. And this one is called The Masked Lady. And this is by Snape's Goddess. And I'm actually very interested in this fanfic author. And I've downloaded like a bunch more of their fics that I'm excited to read. But this one is like Hermione is like a Robin Hood. And so Lucius, he's a widower. Draco has recently just gotten married, so he's an empty nester. He's in his early 50s, and he's kind of just the grump. You know, this stuck-up wizard who's a grump. And Hermione is this Robin Hood character who is stealing from rich wizards to fund her charities. So she actually, at the ministry, she works on the committee for charity. And, you know, it's for witches and wizards who are like, you know, had been hurt by Voldemort's regime or who just don't have as much. And one night she robs Lucius and they have this crazy like flirt off with each other. Like, she wears the full, like, she's got a leather bodysuit and she wears a mask and she's just sexy. And he literally gets turned on when she's robbing him. And she's like, you enjoyed this a little bit too much, didn't you? And he's just like, rah, rah, rah. So then she robs him another time. And then he starts wearing jewels and things that she will want to steal from him to like lure her back to him again. It's fantastic. They also have like Hermione and Lucius also have interactions like at the ministry, and he hasn't figured it out yet. But one of the times, and this was like the like tipping point for them, she sneaks into his bedroom and they have sex and he finds out who she is. That happens like really early on, so it's like the author even says she's like, they're gonna find out who each other is like really soon because there's a other mystery going on. But he finds out who she is and he's like, oh, okay, like it throws him, but he also is just super intrigued. Like, he does not mind that this is Hermione. He's kind of into it. But she leaves before he wakes up, and he is so put out. He is so put out. He goes to the ministry the next day and she's gone. She's went on vacation. And he's like, how dare she turn me on like this and then leave? So she's like, Harry, tell me where she is. And he's like, no. He's like, I know. Like, I want to see her. Like, he doesn't want to give away her story, but he literally, like, hunts her down and is so put out that she would get him all flustered and totally into her, and they're so compatible sexually, and then she just ditches him. And he's like, no way. I want you. And this one was just adorable because there's no stress about them, like, being together. Neither of them have any reservation. I mean, besides her, like, running in the beginning. Like, she just wasn't sure how he felt about it. Like, neither of them has issues with the other person. It really becomes about the fact that there becomes a copycat masked lady. And they know it isn't Hermione because this person is now hurting people. And we need to find out who it is. So, this one was so cute. Like, this one was so cute. And if you're nervous about, like, a Lucius and Hermione pairing, this was a good one. Also because they're not really, like, canon accurate, like, their personalities. Definitely Hermione's isn't. But it was delightful. So, anyway, okay. There is an hour's worth of the recent fan fiction that I've read. Let me know your favorites down below. Only if they're on AO3. I'm sorry, I'm not reading on the other sites. But let me know. Very interested in that. And if there's any Outlander fanfic that you like, let me know. Because I dipped my toe. I was looking and then I backed away because I was like, nope, I can't yet. But I'm interested. So let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my friend Joe who introduced me to this wonderful world. Thank you to all of you who've given me recommendations. And thank you to my channel members for sponsoring this video. I'll see you next time, y'all. Bye.